Spotlight, lectures and performances on and around Albany State University.
Good evening. Welcome to this, our first presidential symposium, which focuses on the topic, the past, present, and future, the role of historically Black colleges and universities in higher education. May I request that you silence your cell phones during the symposium. I would also invite those of you in the back, since our seating is not reserved, to move down closer to the podium. Thank you. It is my distinct pleasure to serve as your moderator for this celebratory and unique event. Celebratory because we pause this evening to take stock of the legacy of historically Black colleges and universities, hereafter referred to as HBCUs, and unique in its focus on that important segment of the fabric of higher education. Unique in a sense that we openly invite discussion of the prospects and the problems of HBCUs. While the history of and contributions of HBCUs in the United States are in fact undeniable, the role and functions of HBCUs have always been and are still today shrouded in controversy and debate, repeatedly challenged, and according to Tilden Michelle, have always faced the same basic questions. Should HBCUs exist? What kind of education should they provide? And how should they relate to the political, economic, and social environment in our society? Consistent with the times, the founding of HBCUs began prior to the Civil War because of slavery and segregation. And the last half of the 19th century was particularly important in the proliferation of HBCUs, aided in some instances by state governments and in other instances by the Second Land Grant Act of 1890. Additionally, the segregation imposed by the federal courts would still bar African Americans from open access to education at other institutions for another whole century. And the Land Grant Act of 1890 further solidified segregation. At the turn of the 20th century, there was an abiding question of what kind of education HBCUs should provide, industrial or classical. Perspectives popularized and identified with Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, respectively. And predictably, the South preferred the former. Despite the contentious controversy, Washington and Du Bois knew the value of education, and both ultimately acknowledged that the false notions of the debate. During the early to mid 20th century, attacks on HBCUs would continue, but there was a notable difference. There were more formal attempts to assess the quality of the education provided by HBCUs, including efforts by foundations and the U.S. Department of Education. Perhaps the most startling and injurious attack on HBCUs came in 1967. The American Negro College, an article published by the Harvard Educational Review by Christopher Jenks and David Reisman, declared that HBCUs were disasters in American higher education. This perspective on HBCUs widened and was popularized in magazines and journals, forcing Black intellectuals and academics to spend inordinate amounts of time defending and rescuing the reputation of HBCUs. The Jenks-Reisman article also set the tone for subsequent attacks, including such publications as The Shape of the River, No Longer Separate, Not Yet Equal. More importantly, however, such publications reinforced affirmative action efforts, contributed to a racial transformation of higher education in America. Even with the advent of affirmative action spawned by the 1954 decision, criticism of HBCUs continued into the 21st century. Among the more recent articles are Jason Riley's Black Colleges Need a New Mission and David Leonhardt's The Declining Payoff of Black Colleges, both of which, like previous attacks, trashed HBCUs, declaring the HBCU academically inferior and questioning their relevance. Criticisms of HBCUs, however, have not always been national, for recently in Mississippi, Georgia, and other states, there have been calls for merging HBCUs with majority white institutions to eliminate the so-called black college problem. Locally, as late as December 1910, in the infamous squawk box of the Albany Herald, one citizen wrote, "Albany State University should not expect community support when they continue to call themselves historically black college." Other criticisms have come from within HBCUs. Just recently in 2010, for example, a former English professor who worked at Albany State University for 30 years and retired published a book entitled Doors, Reflections of an HBCU Career. Indoors, loosely based on Ann Jones's Uncle Tom's Campus, published in 1974, also by a disgruntled faculty member, the former professor at ASU concludes that ASU faculty and staff itself had all too little preparation and polish to impart to students. Their academic credentials were unusually not impressive, and their agendas were, for the most part, economic and social, unrelated to the proper business of any college. Any cursory examination of the history of the HBCUs, however, reveals a remarkable story of survival against all odds. According to some recent statistics, HBCUs currently make up only 3% of all of the institutions of higher education, and they enroll only 14% of all African American students. They still graduate, however, 28% of all African American students who receive undergraduate degrees, produce 23% of all STEM degrees, 60% of all engineering degrees, 50% of all education degrees, and 40% of all health profession degrees earned by African Americans. If HBCUs cease to exist, what happens to these students and this legacy? What then is the future of HBCUs? Should they concede, give up their legacy, and merge with majority white institutions? Do they cling to their current mission, or as in the recent Livingston College experiment, recruit a freshman class that is 75% white and 20% Hispanic? Does the future of HBCUs lie in their totally embracing online education, changing their student populations, or simply downsizing? In this restrictive economic climate, are HBCUs capable of serving their current missions, or is there a need for them to redefine their missions to meet the current needs of higher education? We supporters of HBCUs, you and I, must become engaged in the dialogue to determine how HBCUs should remain relevant for the 21st century. A native of Washington, D.C., and a graduate of Antioch College, the University of Illinois, and Rutgers University, Dr. Freeman is an accomplished scholar, researcher, and writer, having published numerous journal articles and book chapters. Also in demand as a performance, education, and organizational consultant, he serves on corporate boards and on the boards of other organizations. And the accolades he has earned are many, as you see in the printed program. From Washington, D.C. to Albany, however, Dr. Freeman took a very circular route. His journey in higher education administration began with his appointment as Dean of Continuing Education at Jackson State University. And from Mississippi, He journeyed to Nashville, Tennessee, where he served as executive assistant to the president of Tennessee State University. In 2001, he traveled further up south to become senior vice president and provost at the University of Indianapolis. The lure of the Deep South, however, was very strong. And in 2005, Dr. Freeman was appointed president of Albany State University. We are extremely glad that he, like our founder, Dr. Joseph Winthrop Holley, came to the Deep South. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the illustrious eighth president of Albany State University, Dr. Everett J. Freeman.
I'm going to depart just momentarily from my prepared remarks to ask those who were highlighted in the DVD you just saw to stand up. They did such a remarkable job, and I'd like you to see them in the flesh. There they are. I really, really appreciate the work that you have done on behalf of Albany State University. The future, we make of it. Legend has it that upon leaving the meeting in Philadelphia that created the new republic, Benjamin Franklin was asked, "Sir, do we have a monarchy or a republic?" He replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." Dr. Payton, members of the Albany State University family, friends and supporters, I am honored and privileged to be here with you this evening to deliver brief remarks before our keynote speaker. The future of Albany State University, as is true for the future of the Republic at large, is in our hands. It will be ultimately what we make of it. The Chinese proverb says, "May you live in interesting times." These truly are interesting times because of the present challenges and opportunities before Albany State University. This is a time where we finish our current strategic plan and embark upon a new one. Where has Albany State University come in the past 5 years? Where is it going? How will it get there? And once there, what kind of future will we make for ourselves? These are the questions I wish to briefly reflect upon in the time that I have. In 2006, Albany State University launched a strategic planning process that has been at the core of our strategic plan. The strategic plan that we have, covering the years 2006 through 2011, calls for us to address 4 important and interconnected goals. Goal number 1, strengthening the historic mission and role of the university while proactively serving the diverse needs of the region and the state. Goal number 2, using the university's intellectual resources to advance the educational, economic, social, and cultural opportunities of the citizens of Southwest Georgia. Goal 3, building a stronger university community by increasing customer satisfaction, improving human resource development, and enhancing organizational capacity. And finally, goal number 4, providing and maintaining state-of-the-art technology infrastructure that supports the university's mission and goals. What occurred? ASU developed a new and exciting undergraduate degree program in logistics and supply chain management that prepares students to enter the logistics field as fully prepared practitioners. We also designed an undergraduate degree in renewable and sustainable energy management that positions our graduates to enter the burgeoning green economy. On the graduate school level, ASU offers a new master's in social work and continues to work with the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services to address the pressing problems facing the less fortunate among us. When I arrived, Albany State provided no pathways from 2-year colleges to here. Today, we have in place more transfer and completion programs with colleges and universities in Southwest Georgia than any other entity within the university system of Georgia. Our nursing articulation and education articulation agreements with Albany Technical College and Darton College serve as a model for recently penned copycat agreements between Bainbridge and Georgia Southwestern University and Darton College and Georgia Southwestern. In the domain of building a stronger university community, over the past 5 years, alumni giving has dramatically increased, and the same is true for faculty and staff giving. Young alums have been especially open to giving back to their alma mater. Since 2007, every graduating class has given at the 100% level to Albany State University at graduation. That's right, 100% of our graduates have given back at the day they graduated. Every single alum of the university who graduated from 2007, nearly 4,000 young alums in all, have given modestly to be sure, but nonetheless have given back. That pattern of giving will continue over time as these graduates establish themselves financially. Recently, I made the decision to re-energize our efforts to offer presidential scholarships to Georgia's best and brightest students who wish to attend Albany State University. When Dr. Billy Black created the Presidential Scholars Program and when Dr. Portia Shields expanded it, both understood clearly that presidential scholarships are investments that reap dividends not only in years to come, but during the years those young scholars are on the Albany State University campus, because the best and the brightest attract the best and the brightest. Albany State University also has improved our university's commitment to customer satisfaction by focus with laser-like intensity on process improvement. Since January of 2010, mission-focused teams of faculty, staff, and student representatives have worked with two remarkably talented external consultants who are here with us this evening to modernize and streamline how we conduct business in recruiting, admissions, financial aid, transfer articulation, and registration. ASU's fourth goal called upon us to vastly improve our technology support for faculty, students, and staff, and to catapult the university into the 21st century as an instructional and informational technology leader. Today, Albany State University is cited as one of the most creative HBCUs in the country with respect to infrastructure and information technology, and with respect to providing internet access for its students. Over the past 3 years, we spent over $2 million in networking equipment and fiber infrastructure, file servers, storage for emails and documents, and quicker internet access. More improvements are on the way. This coming August, we will complete 2 major construction projects on our campus, namely expansion of our student center and dining facility, as well as opening 2 new residential halls to accommodate 600 more students who wish to live on the Albany State campus. Both construction projects injected roughly $38 million into the state and the local economy, reeling from the economic downturns we now have been experiencing. ASU students, emboldened by their own strong vision about ASU's future, took it upon themselves to vote with their wallets and purses for a new student center, and they are, and we believe will be, the magnet for attracting new students to Albany State in the future. So what shall this future for Albany State be? Between now and December 2011, ASU will implement the final elements of our 2006-2011 strategic plans. We plan on launching a new strategic plan for 2012 through 2017 by January 14, 2012. In September of 2011, we will launch a new series of focus group discussions with community stakeholders, students, faculty, and staff toward achieving that goal. As was true when we developed our current strategic plan, we will need the collective input from all of you here and in the community to make that plan truly a university plan, not a Freeman plan, but a plan that reflects the hopes and dreams and aspirations of us all. We also will need to remember the sacrifices of those who've gone before as we develop our new strategic plan. To this end, we have dedicated the year 2011 as the year we celebrate the courage and vision of the 1961 Albany movement participants. We have in this room with us this evening the founder of that movement, Dr. Walter Anderson, and I invite him to stand. Dr. Anderson. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Tomorrow, as we celebrate Founders Day, Dr. Anderson will be our speaker, and he will use the occasion not simply to look back at our glorious past, but to call upon us to look forward to our glorious future. And he will call upon all of us to remember those who have sacrificed, and yet call upon all of us to sacrifice a full measure more to make Albany State University better. 50 years ago, a brave few students risked their lives and future to participate in the unfolding civil rights struggle in this country and in the streets and in the neighborhoods of this city, Albany itself. We shall not forget them. Perhaps, indeed, there could be no better or more fitting way to launch this year's celebration of the 1961 Albany movement than the one initiated by our students themselves, and the one initiated by none other than our own Miss Albany State University, Aaliyah Arnold. Miss Arnold decided to share her October 3, 2010 coronation with Miss ASC of 1961. During her coronation, Miss Arnold restored Mrs. Annette Jones White's crown as Miss Albany State University College for 1961. Ms. Jones lost her crown and college scholarship for her civil rights activism in 1961. Ms. ASC bravely lost her crown. Ms. ASU courageously restored her crown. Soon we will have an ASU strategic plan for 2012 through 2017. By 2017, China will have surpassed the United States to become the most powerful economic engine in the world. By 2017, the world of higher education will also be considerably different than it is today. The likely persistence of high levels of unemployment in the United States and in most of the Western free market economies will have reshaped our view of the expected returns on a college education for not only traditional age students, but for non-traditional students, parents, faculty, staff, and others. While my hope is that the students entering Albany State University's fall 2017 class will be motivated by the age-old desire to pursue higher education for the simple joy of discovery and learning, I fully realize that those incoming students will be far more focused on the economic as well as the intellectual benefits of their time here. By 2017, students will gravitate toward those colleges and universities that can show clearly that they provide academic rigor and employment-related value. Both will be required in greater measure. HBCUs will not be exempt. ASU will not be exempt. Early this month, in fact at the beginning of this month, the Student Government Association leaders invited my cabinet and me to dinner, as we do each month. When we met at the beginning of the month, we had a blockbuster conversation about our beloved ASU. By far, it was the most exciting dialogue I have ever had in my experience as an educator over 37 years. The student leaders told my vice presidents and me that they wanted more. They wanted more substance, more rigor in their classrooms, more challenging expectations, more interaction with faculty and staff beyond the scheduled instructional sessions and instructional times, more ways to connect their theoretical learning to what will await them beyond ASU's doors, and more intellectual passion from us all. These student leaders were not criticizing our incredibly committed faculty or staff or administrators for what we now do so well. They were simply saying, fill our intellectual cups to the brim. Indeed, fill our intellectual cups to overflowing. The SGA leaders told me that they and their like-minded classmates, growing in numbers by the day, were perfectly willing to stand resolute behind faculty members who demand that students come to class on time, prepared, and willing to do their best. These leaders were clear that grades should be earned and not given. They were equally firm in stating that Albany State University cannot be and will not be a place where student imposters come merely to receive refund checks or an inviting place to live during troubled economic times. In the winter issue 2011 of the American Scholar, William Chase suggests that affirmative action's last chance in higher education, its last chance, may well be the wealthiest private colleges and universities because of the shrinking number of minority students at America's public universities. Chase suggests that these wealthy colleges and universities essentially buy the best and brightest students of color whom public colleges and universities are struggling to recruit because of budget tightening. I don't buy it. You may be able to buy entering students through a bidding war, but you cannot keep them if you do not know what you are doing and you do not care. What Albany State University is able to offer students is priceless, namely a better value proposition. What is that better value proposition? An environment of cultural and intellectual freedom to learn in communities of fellow knowledge seekers who believe education is for eventual service to others and not simply a consumer good like a coat or an iPad. The academy is not and cannot become an educational haven for the wealthy or an escape from the challenges the future will present. As Dr. Payton will show so masterfully in his keynote address this evening, HBCUs never have allowed the lack of wallet to get in the way of will and determination. Since 1903, Albany State University has set as its sight preparation of the sons and daughters of those born beneath the veil of racism and all others who wish to seek an education to find within our walls intellectual docking stations as well as launching pads for the future. A place where it is all right to ask the important questions of what it means to be a human being as well as what it means to be professionally successful. ASU will long continue to be a place where every student discovers her voice as she writes across the curriculum and across the skies. A place where the echoes of the past whisper still. Our future, as far as I see it, is bright, and I know it's squarely in our hands, and we will seize it. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.